Miranda Thornton entered every room as if the world were an extension of her will, her demands, and her dominance. And on the night she swept into the Golden Palm, a restaurant so prestigious that celebrities waited weeks for reservations, her arrival felt like the abrupt shift of weather before a violent storm. The double doors swung open aggressively, pushed by her manicured hands decorated with diamonds worth more than the average person's yearly salary, and the sharp tap, tap, tap of her heels echoed across the marble floors with a threatening rhythm that made even the chandeliers seem to tremble. People whispered instantly. Faces stiffened. The maitre d' straightened his jacket and braced himself like a soldier heading into battle. Staff members exchanged nervous glances. The kitchen crew paused mid-motion because even behind closed doors, the rumor of her presence traveled faster than fire. Miranda wasn't just the wife of billionaire real estate mogul Victor Thornton. She was the woman people feared, avoided, and dreaded serving. Her reputation was so infamous that her name was treated like a curse. Chefs recalled her tantrums. Waiters remembered her insults. Managers still had nightmares about the times she had reduced them to tears with just her voice. No one ever forgot Miranda Thornton. She made sure of that. Victor followed behind her as usual with his quiet, defeated posture. Shoulders slumped, hands tucked loosely into his expensive blazer, eyes scanning the room but avoiding people. He was a billionaire, but beside Miranda, he looked like a fragile shadow, wearing a suit that didn't belong to him. The contrast between them was striking. She walked like she owned the world, and he walked like he wished it would stop noticing him. Miranda's voice shot through the air before anyone even greeted her. "For heaven's sake, who picked this lighting? It makes everyone in here look like they live in basements," she snapped, rolling her eyes dramatically. The maitre d', trembling slightly, forced a smile and bowed his head. "Good evening, Mrs. Thornton. Your table is ready." "Obviously," she interrupted, brushing past him as if he were an inconvenient piece of furniture. The restaurant's clientele, business elites, wealthy tourists, and upper-class families, tried to avoid staring at her, but it was impossible. People always watched Miranda, waiting for her next explosion, the next person she would humiliate. She gave them entertainment they never asked for, but couldn't look away from. The staff braced themselves. They knew tonight would be another disaster, or so they thought, because tonight someone new was working. A young black waitress named Ariana Cole stepped forward with a calmness so steady it almost disrupted the energy in the room. She didn't shrink back like the others. She didn't stammer. She didn't plaster a fake smile on her face out of fear. Ariana moved with a quiet, poised confidence, the kind that came from surviving things far worse than rude customers. Her dark curly hair was pulled into a neat bun, her apron tied professionally around her waist, and her warm brown eyes glimmered with a gentleness that softened every space she walked into. She wasn't intimidated by the wealthy. She wasn't impressed by the diamonds or the attitude. She was here to work, to serve with dignity, to do her job well, and no storm, human or otherwise, could shake her. She approached with a polite nod. "Good evening, Mrs. Thornton. Your table is ready. Please follow me." Miranda stopped mid-stride, narrowing her eyes as if offended by Ariana's calm tone. "Don't good evening me," she snapped. Fix this horrible lighting. Move those chairs 2 inches to the left and tell the kitchen not to overcook my salmon like last time. I swear, this place is falling apart." Her voice dripped with entitlement. Customers flinched at her tone. Victor sighed wearily behind her, but Ariana didn't flinch. Her face remained serene. She didn't apologize excessively. She didn't panic. She simply nodded once. "I'll let the staff know. Please follow me to your table." Her voice was soft but firm, like velvet wrapped around steel. Miranda blinked. She wasn't used to that. People usually scrambled. They bowed. They rushed. They avoided eye contact. They did everything except remain calm. Because Miranda thrived on fear, it fueled her. But Ariana offered her none. She offered respect, yes, but not fear. And that quietly unsettled Miranda more than any trembling servant ever had. As Ariana led them through the restaurant, whispers circulated behind her like hidden currents. "Who's the new waitress? Poor girl, she doesn't know what she's dealing with. Miranda will eat her alive." But Ariana walked with grace unbothered, her spine straight and her steps steady. Victor watched her curiously. Something about her presence soothed him. For the first time that night, his shoulders relaxed slightly. When they reached the table, Miranda inspected everything like she was judging a crime scene. The napkins are uneven. The flowers are wilted. The chair legs make noise when they move. This is ridiculous. Ariana adjusted the items with quiet composure. "Everything will be fixed right away, ma'am." But the more Ariana stayed calm, the more internally rattled Miranda felt. It was as though Ariana's silence reflected something Miranda didn't want to see, her own unnecessary aggression. Miranda crossed her arms sharply. "Why are you so calm?" she demanded. "Do you know who I am?" Ariana met her eyes with a gaze, so steady it seemed to slow the room around them. Her voice came out soft, but strong. "Yes, ma'am. I know you're a guest, and I'm here to serve you respectfully. I hope you'll offer the same courtesy." Dead silence fell across the restaurant. Utensils stopped clinking. Conversations froze mid-sentence. Even the chef paused at the kitchen window, staring. Miranda's jaw dropped. Victor stared at Ariana with surprise. The staff exchanged wide-eyed glances. No one, absolutely no one, had ever spoken to Miranda Thornton like that. Not with disrespect, but with dignity, with boundaries, with truth. Ariana hadn't insulted her. She hadn't embarrassed her. She simply told her what every staff member had secretly wished to say for years. Miranda's eyes widened. Her cheeks flushed with a mix of shock and indignation. She opened her mouth to retaliate, but nothing came out. The words, the insults, the cruelty she usually unleashed so easily suddenly felt heavy, stuck, tangled somewhere in her chest. Miranda wasn't speechless often. It was a foreign feeling, uncomfortable, unnerving. She swallowed hard. Tried again, still nothing. She sat down instead, and under the table, completely hidden from the world, her hand trembled. Because when Ariana spoke, she didn't just address Miranda's behavior. She saw the woman behind the behavior. That terrified Miranda more deeply than she wanted to admit. Ariana wasn't afraid of her, and she wasn't fooled by her. And that, more than anything, pierced Miranda like a pin through fabric. Dinner continued with thick tension, hanging in the air like humidity before rain. Every waiter tiptoed, terrified of accidentally triggering Miranda. Victor remained quiet, caught between relief and concern. Customers subtly turned their heads to see what would happen next, as if watching a live drama unfold. Ariana brought water, and as she poured it with smooth precision, Miranda's eyes tracked every movement suspiciously. Finally, irritation flashed across Miranda's face, and she snapped. "Why are you smiling? Do you think this is funny? Nobody smiles here. There's nothing to smile about." Her voice was harsh, but beneath it, there was something else, something almost insecure. Ariana continued pouring the water, her calm smile never flickering. "Sometimes," she said softly, "people smile because they've survived worse than what's happening right now." Miranda's breath caught in her throat. It was such a simple statement, and yet it hit her like a punch to the chest. Because buried beneath Miranda's diamonds, designer dress, and polished cruelty was a truth she'd spent her life hiding. She too had survived things, bad things, painful things, things she never spoke about. Her eyes lowered, confused, defensive, suddenly vulnerable. Miranda didn't understand Ariana's steady presence. Kindness unnerved her. Calmness triggered her. Respect without fear confused her. Because her entire adult life had been built on dominance, control, and preemptive cruelty. Ariana's quiet strength felt like exposure, like someone gently lifting the armor she'd soldered to her skin. Victor took a sip of water, watching the surprising shift. "Miranda," he murmured, "maybe let her do her job." "Oh, please," Miranda snapped automatically, but her voice had less venom than usual. She forced herself to lift her chin. "Don't pretend to care, Victor. You never do." Her husband looked down, pain flickering across his face. And though Ariana was already walking away to fetch their starters, she accidentally overheard Victor's quiet, heartbreaking response. "I care, Miranda. You just stopped letting me." That sentence cut the air sharper than any insult Miranda had ever hurled. Ariana paused mid-step. She didn't turn around. She respected privacy. But she heard the tremor in Victor's voice, heard the truth. And when she returned with their plates, she saw something startling in Miranda's posture. The woman wasn't glaring. She wasn't criticizing. She wasn't shouting. Miranda was staring at her plate with an expression Ariana had never seen on her before. Miranda looked lost. For the first time that night, she whispered, "Thank you," when Ariana placed the food down. The words were quiet, awkward, almost forced, as if Miranda hadn't spoken gratitude in so long that the muscles no longer remembered how to form the syllables. The staff nearly dropped their trays watching it happen. Ariana nodded gently. She didn't say anything. She didn't draw attention to the surprising shift. She simply moved on, letting the small moment breathe. Because sometimes a small crack is the beginning of the entire wall falling down. And Ariana could already see the cracks forming. Dinner at the Golden Palm continued unfolding like a quiet transformation hidden beneath clinking glasses and soft piano music. And though the ambiance remained elegant and composed, something unseen had shifted like a slow ripple under still water. Miranda Thornton, a woman whose mere presence once sent shockwaves of fear through rooms, now sat strangely still, her sharp eyes softer, her hands intertwined on her lap instead of gesturing aggressively in the air. It wasn't calm, not yet, but it was the closest she had come in years. As Ariana Cole moved between tables like a soft breeze, her graceful posture and composed presence radiating a grounded energy that soothed even the smallest tensions, Miranda watched her with a mixture of confusion and reluctant admiration. She stared at Ariana, the way someone lost in a forest might stare at a compass, curious, uncertain, slightly resentful, but undeniably pulled toward it. Victor watched his wife carefully as well. He had seen Miranda in every possible emotional state: rage, panic, arrogance, defensiveness, bitterness. But the blend of silence and vulnerability now swimming in her eyes was unfamiliar, and he didn't know what to do with it. It felt like watching a door crack open that had been sealed shut for decades. Something inside her was shifting, uncoiling, unraveling, and Victor wasn't sure whether he should help, step back, or brace himself. Meanwhile, the rest of the restaurant remained cautiously alert, tiptoeing around the table as if fearful the slightest disturbance would shatter the fragile peace that had been forming. When Ariana approached with fresh water, Miranda tensed again, not with anger, but with discomfort, as though Ariana's presence triggered something she wasn't ready to acknowledge. "More water, Mom?" Ariana asked gently. Miranda opened her mouth to respond sharply, to retake control, to reclaim the dominance she always used as a shield. But the harsh words that once came so easily suddenly felt heavy and inappropriate. "Yes," she muttered instead, hesitant, almost embarrassed. Ariana nodded, pouring the water with a calm rhythm. Her movements so smooth and controlled, they felt therapeutic to watch. Miranda studied her face intently. "Why are you smiling?" she finally blurted, unable to contain the irritation scratching inside her. "Do you think something is amusing? Because nothing here is funny." Her tone was sharp, but lacked the venom it typically carried. Ariana simply continued her work. "Sometimes," she replied with gentle certainty, "people smile because they've survived things that taught them to appreciate the small, calm moments." Miranda blinked, taken aback. The sentence sank into her like a stone dropped into deep water, creating waves she didn't know how to handle. Part of her wanted to snap back. How dare this woman imply she understood hardship? But another part of her, a part buried beneath layers of ice and diamonds, felt a sting of recognition. Miranda had survived things too, many things. But she had built walls so thick around those memories that she had forgotten what it felt like to hear truth spoken plainly. "But you don't know anything about me," Miranda muttered defensively, shifting uncomfortably in her seat. "You have no idea what I've survived." Ariana's smile softened, and for a moment the weight of the world seemed to rest gently in her eyes. The restaurant lights dimmed into a late evening glow, the hour when shadows stretch long across marble floors and conversations soften into murmurs. Yet at table 7, her table, there was no softness, no warmth. Victoria sat rigid, posture sharp as a blade, her fingers tapping the crystal rim of her wineglass with a rhythm of irritation. It was as if every breath around her existed only to offend her. The waitstaff moved like frightened ghosts. No one wanted to approach her. No one wanted to become the target of her venom. Not after the humiliation she had thrown earlier. But Maya, calm yet unshakably firm, stepped forward when she noticed the woman's glass was nearly empty. She didn't do it because she wanted to. She did it because it was her job, and because a strange sense of responsibility tugged at her chest. Something about Victoria's cruelty didn't feel natural. It felt like a mask held on by trembling fingers. As Maya reached the table, Victoria didn't even look up. She simply pointed at her empty glass as though commanding a servant. Maya exhaled silently, filled the glass, and stepped back, only for Victoria to snap. "Are you deaf or just slow? I said chilled water, not room temperature." Her voice cut the air like ice, drawing the attention of nearby customers. A few whispered. A few rolled their eyes. A few pitied whatever waitress had the misfortune of attending that table. Maya swallowed her frustration. She refused to let this woman drag her down. "I'll bring chilled water right away," she replied evenly. Victoria's husband, Leonard, sat stiffly beside her, his tie loosened, his eyes tight with embarrassment. He opened his mouth as if to intervene, but her glare silenced him instantly. He sank back into his chair, defeated, accustomed to being muted. But Maya noticed something else, something heavier than mere discomfort. His hands trembled. His breathing was shallow. He looked like a man drowning quietly beside a storm. When Maya returned with the chilled water, Victoria didn't accept it gracefully. Instead, she looked up with a poisonous smirk. "Why do they even hire people like you? Slow, unfocused, always making mistakes?" The words struck hard, but Maya refused to break. Her grandmother always told her the loudest person in the room is usually the weakest. But tonight, there was something different. Victoria didn't look loud. She looked brittle, like a porcelain vase about to shatter from the weight of her own rage. Maya met her eyes, something no other staff dared to do. "Mom," she said softly, "is everything okay tonight?" That simple question pierced the air. Leonard's head lifted. Victoria froze. The smirk faltered, cracked, then vanished entirely. Her fingers twitched around her napkin. For a heartbeat, she looked startled, vulnerable, almost childlike. Then, as if realizing she had let her mask slip, she straightened, voice dripping with false superiority. "Don't psychoanalyze me, girl. Just do your job." But her voice shook. Maya didn't miss it. Leonard didn't miss it either. In fact, for the first time that evening, he looked directly at Maya, as though silently thanking her for asking the question he had been too afraid to voice. The dinner continued painfully. Every few minutes, Victoria found something new to complain about. The seasoning, the lighting, the temperature, the music, even the chairs. But the more she tried to belittle Maya, the more it became painfully obvious that she was crumbling on the inside. And Maya, instead of responding with anger, responded with grace. It wasn't weakness, it was strength, the kind of strength that unsettles those who thrive on control. At one point, Victoria lifted her fork, but her hand trembled so badly she dropped it. The clang echoed across the restaurant. She, cursed under her breath, grabbed the edges of the table and inhaled sharply as though fighting back tears. Leonard whispered urgently, "Victoria, please, just breathe." "Don't tell me what to do," she hissed, but her voice broke mid-sentence. Suddenly, she pushed her chair back and stood. The entire room turned towards the sound. Her chest rose and fell quickly, too quickly. She blinked rapidly, trying to steady herself, but her composure was gone. Her armor had finally cracked. She whispered something inaudible and rushed toward the restroom, stumbling slightly. Leonard exhaled shakily, rubbing his forehead. The moment she disappeared behind the door, the staff released a collective breath, as though the storm had passed. But for Maya, the storm felt far from over. She had seen something in Victoria's eyes before she fled, something raw, almost desperate. Pain. And too much pain can twist a person into something unrecognizable. A few minutes later, while refilling drinks at another table, Maya overheard two customers gossiping. "That's the millionaire's wife, isn't she?" "Yeah, she's famous for terrorizing staff everywhere she goes. I heard she's been banned from 3 resorts. No wonder her husband looks half dead." Maya frowned, not because of the gossip, but because she couldn't shake the memory of Victoria's trembling hands. A person doesn't break like that for no reason. An hour passed before Victoria finally returned to her table, eyes red despite her attempts to hide it with makeup. When Leonard saw her, he stood slowly as if approaching a wounded animal. "Victoria," he said softly, "please, let's just go home." But she sat down silently, refusing to look at him. Her voice, when it returned, was faint. "No, we're staying." It wasn't anger anymore. It was exhaustion, a deep, suffocating exhaustion, and somehow that was worse. Maya approached cautiously. Victoria stiffened, but didn't lash out. For the first time, she looked tired of her own cruelty. Maya set down the dessert menus, but instead of walking away, she spoke gently. "Ma'am, I don't want to overstep. But if you need anything, water, a moment outside, someone to talk to, I'm here." Leonard stared at Maya in disbelief, not because she spoke out of turn, but because she was the first person in a long time who dared treat his wife like a human rather than a threat. Victoria didn't lift her head, but a single tear slipped down her cheek, dropping silently onto the menu. She wiped it cue,